here to continue our work on data about us, our introduction to statistics. Our learning target today is I can evaluate the mean of a set of data. For today's materials, you're going to want a pencil, your composition notebook, or any kind of paper. You might want a calculator, and then, but it's optional. And then later on, you're going to need the worksheet that is in your Get a Glance or learning activities. So the first vocabulary word we're going to talk about, or the only vocabulary word we're going to talk about today, is mean. So all of last week we talked about different types of looking at data, and you could call all of those averages. However, usually when someone says find the average of something, they're talking about the mean. So the way you do this is you find the sum of all of the data. So if you have like 10 data points, you add all those data points together, and then you divide it by the number of data points. So if you had 10 data points, you would add them all together and then divide by 10. If you had 8 data points, you would add the 8 data points together and divide by 8. So let's see if I can pull up my, do I have a, nope, I don't. Okay, so I hope you can see my pen. Sorry about that. So right here, we have 3 data points. So we add those 3 data points together to get 18. And then there were 3 data points, so you divide that 18 by 3, and that gives us 6. Another way of looking at this is like up here, we're basically trying to figure out if we had to if we had to kind of like give some and take away some from different areas, how could we make these 3 pillars be the same size? Well, if you took 2 away from 8 and put it here, that'd give you 5, and then if you took one more away from 8, that would make this one 5 and this one 5. So then the average of 3, 8, and 4 would be 5. We use this at school a lot, averages, or the mean. One time we use it is during Clash of Cans. Wow, words are hard today. During Clash of Cans, we determined the number of points each class brought in. Then we divided that by the number of students in that class to figure out the average points. So I believe Miss Weed won. If she had 1,000 points, she would divide that by however many students she had, and that would help us figure out how many points per student, or the mean per student. And then that's how we figure out who won, because then we can figure out, based on how many students we had, about how many points were they bringing in per student they have. That makes it fair. If you have a bigger class, it makes it more fair than if you have a smaller class. There are a couple steps that you're going to want to remember. Whenever I do this, I always figure out the sum of the data first. Then I divide the sum by the number of data points. So you do have to count the number of data points here. And then you just write down what the mean is. I usually write it down in a sentence just to make sure we know what we're talking about. And especially since there's a lot of different kinds of quote unquote averages, we want to make sure that people know that this is the mean and not just some random average that we're finding. So I'm going to show you an example. You can go ahead and follow along with me if you want to try and do it on your own based on what we've done. You're more than welcome to, but otherwise just follow along with me on this one. So it says, evaluate the mean of the following set of data: 5, 12, 8, 2, 4, 5, 10, 15, 12, and 7. So the first step is we're going to just write down what our data is. So we're just going to rewrite our numbers down. This is just to help keep track of things. If you're working on a worksheet, you can just make sure you write data next to it. Just make sure you know where the data is. The next step is to figure out the sum of the data. So that means that we're going to add 5, 12, 8, 2, 4, 5, 10, 15, 12, and 7 together. You can use a calculator to do this. I know I did. Even though these ones are whole numbers, sometimes you're going to be working with decimals or fractions, and you just want to make sure you're getting that accurate. I don't mind if you use a calculator today. You're totally welcome to. But if you don't want to, that's fine as well. So that equaled 80. So our sum of the data is 80. That's why it's in green. The next step is to divide the sum, so this is the sum, by the number of data points. So we have the sum of data divided by the number of data points. We do need to figure out, we have the sum of the data here, but we do need to figure out the number of data points. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 data points. Now that is going to equal 80, because that was our sum of the data here. divided by 10, the number of 10 that we counted above. And again, you can use a calculator if you want to, but I'm assuming a lot of you with 80 divided by 10 do not need to use a calculator. The answer would be 8. So the last thing you need to do is record the mean. The mean of this set is data is 8. So these are some good steps to remember. Re-record the data or find the data, find the sum of the data, so add them up. Divide the sum by the number of data points. Remember, in this step, you have to actually count the number of data points. And then record the mean. So remember, if you ever see a pause button in the corner, that means at some point during this slide, you're going to want to possibly pause. So I'm going to give you a chance to solve this problem. It says the following are scores students earned on a test. Determine the mean of the scores. So try and solve this problem on your own. I will give hints and do this step by step. So if you get stuck, go ahead and watch the video and figure out where you got trapped or stuck so that you can fix that. If you made a mistake, please pause the video, fix the mistake, and then try to move on from that point, because sometimes that's just all we needed was to figure out where our mistake was, and then you actually know the rest of the steps. So I'm going to give you a chance to pause the video here, and then I will give you chances to see some hints along the way. All right, welcome back, friends. So the first thing I do is I try to remember what my steps are. So if that was where you got stuck, go ahead and pause the video here so that you can write the steps down and then maybe follow each step and see if you can get it out that way. The next thing I did was I rewrote all of the data points. Then I wanted to add all the data points together. Remember, you can use a calculator here if you need to. That equaled 50. So then the next step is divide the sum by the number of data points. So I have the sum of data divided by number of data points. I counted the data points. There's 20. The sum of the data was 50. The number of data points was 20. So that'd be 50 over 20, or 50 divided by 20. And then now I just need to actually do the division to figure out the mean. 50 divided by 20 is 2.5. I did use a calculator on that, and you can too. So the mean of the set of the test scores is 2.5. If you made a mistake, I'm going to have you actually pause and go back and maybe try to do this over again, just so you can really get that practice. Yeah. So for your practice today, there's a worksheet. The answer key, I believe, is on the second page, so you have to scroll down to see the second page with the answer key. Go ahead and complete the worksheet. Feel free to use a calculator. You can print the worksheet out, but you do not have to. If you don't have a printer or you don't want to, you can just do the problems in your notebook or on a piece of paper. However, if you don't print it, please make sure you actually write down the original data set like here, so that you have that written down in your notebook. Sometimes one of my biggest pet peeves when I let students use calculators is when they say, but Miss Bernie, I don't have to show my work because I use a calculator. Or I say, hey, where's your work? And they're like, I use a calculator. That doesn't matter. You can still show your work. So whenever you show your work, it's really good that you write down what you put in your calculator. Because here's the deal. I cannot tell you how many times I've made a mistake typing things into my calculator and I got the wrong answer. But because my teacher didn't see what I put into the calculator, I didn't get any credit. But if I just write down, oh, I added this stuff together and then I divided by this. Well, if you accidentally forgot a number when you were adding, that I see that you knew what the steps were, I can still give you credit on that. But if I don't see that, I have no idea what you did and how you got your answer. So you need to make sure that you're writing down your steps. All right, when you're done, check your work against the answer key. Keep your work somewhere safe. You will be turning it in on Teams on Friday. Contact your teacher with any questions. Some of you are doing that through email. I know my class is doing that through Teams. If you haven't used your full 30 minutes, finish your time. On one of the many choices you have, for example, MobyMax, some of you have Math Excel. There's a challenge today. If you want to do that as your extra time, I highly recommend it. There will be a video attached for that as well. And then today I want you to tell someone in your family what mean is. What is it in math? What is mean? All right, that's it for finding the mean. I hope you guys have an awesome day and good luck on your stuff. Have a good one.